Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast, where we engage with esteemed thought leaders and explore research-backed strategies and techniques that empower leaders at every level to achieve meaningful results that drive lasting change.
Given that leadership challenges are universal, what types of leadership issues do you encounter most frequently, and how does IMS address them?
Leadership challenges are universal, and many organizations face similar issues, which can hinder their performance, their culture, and growth. The Institute for Management Studies frequently encounters a range of these leadership challenges across industries, which typically revolve around communication, decision-making, employee engagement, change management, and developing future leaders and mid-level leaders to those senior ranks. So poor communication and misalignment. Probably the most frequent leadership challenge that we see is ineffective communication, which leads to that misalignment between teams and leadership. It can manifest itself as unclear expectations, poor feedback mechanisms, or an inability to communicate strategic goals effectively. It can also lead to people not wanting to have those tough conversations or deal with difficult people. And developing leaders at all levels. We provide foundational courses at each leadership level, giving the leaders the necessary skills they need to develop in their people manager roles. Because I find a lot of time what companies do is they say you're a great employee, you're hitting it out of the park, you're doing great on all of the metrics that we're measuring you on, but that's as an individual contributor. Once they get into that people manager role, they're not given the tools and the resources they need to be successful, and now they feel it's kind of a bait and switch. Well, I was being successful in my former role, but now there's a whole new metric or metrics that I have to be aware of to be successful in this new role, and I don't have the tools, I don't have the resources or the training I need to be successful.
So for companies hesitant to invest in learning and development due to budget constraints, what advice would you give them to demonstrate that IMS programs are worth the investment?
Well, for companies that are hesitant to invest in development due to budget constraints, demonstrating the value of IMS programs requires us that we focus on tangible returns on investment and long-term benefits. But we can also kind of flip that and say, what's the cost of not investing in development, which can be far more costly than one realizes, especially in the long term. Plenty of research to support this, but not investing in learning and development in the long term, higher turnover, lower employee engagement, ineffective leadership. When companies don't invest in their people, they often face significant recruitment and training costs as employees leave for better opportunities. According to Gallup, disengaged employees cost companies $3,400 for every $10,000 in their salary due to lost productivity. So it's far better for most organizations to find a way to keep them engaged than trying to replace employees at these significant escalating costs. The one key piece that I don't hear enough is we need to focus on short-term wins while also maintaining long-term value. Companies often struggle to justify L&D investments because they fear it's going to take too long before they see results. However, with well-designed programs like those with IMS, companies can achieve quick wins that provide immediate value while laying the groundwork for long-term success.
And for companies on the fence about joining IMS, what would you say to them to help overcome their reservations and understand the value that IMS can provide?
Yeah, for companies that are on the fence about joining the Institute for Management Studies, it's essential for them to understand the long-term value, tangible outcomes, and unique benefits that IMS offers in transforming leadership and organizational performance. So we have a proven track record of success, over 50 years of partnering with top organizations across industries, delivering proven results in leadership development, employee engagement, organizational performance. Companies have worked with IMS consistently report measurable improvements in their leadership effectiveness, team dynamics, and really overall business performance. We also offer tailored, flexible learning solutions because that's what people want these days, and that provides the greatest impact. So unlike many one-size-fits-all training solutions, IMS works closely with each client to design programs that are tailored to their specific needs, goals, and organizational culture. Additionally, we offer very flexible delivery methods, whether it's in-person, virtual, or blended, so organizations can implement programs that fit their unique needs and budget. We also have access to lots of global thought leaders that I think is another differentiator that's unique to IMS. Access to these global leaders in various areas provides us that insight, those research-backed methodologies, and moves us into the forefront of these fields, giving access to leaders attending our programs this wealth of knowledge so that you're future ready for your next leadership role. What we're trying to build here is a future ready workforce. And I think that's where we really excel in developing that, getting our leaders to be more adaptive, innovative, and equipped to handle those complexities of modern business.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about the learning and development industry?
One of the biggest misconceptions, or I'll give you a few, is that training alone leads to immediate and lasting behavior change. That's just simply not the case. Many organizations believe that if they send their employees or leaders to a workshop, seminar, training session, they're going to fix those performance issues, improve their skills, and drive engagement. And however, this view often overlooks the complexities of adult learning and the importance of ongoing reinforcement, practical application, and the support, the environmental support in achieving that sustained change. So, learning is a process, it's not a one time event. Now, training is an essential part of that development, but it's only the beginning of that learning journey. Research shows that people forget 70% of what they learn within 24 hours based on the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve if it's not reinforced. So, real behavior change requires continuous learning, reinforcement, and opportunities to apply new skills in real world scenarios. They also don't realize that organizational culture plays a key role in the learning. Even the most effective training programs can fail if employees return to a workplace that doesn't support or reward these new behaviors they're trying to adopt, because there's strong, well grooved neural pathways in their brain telling them go back to that default way of doing things. It's just easier that way. So, culture and leadership support are critical to embed these new skills and approaches. And just finally, soft skills are hard to teach. Many people believe soft skills such as communication, emotional intelligence, or leadership are just inherently difficult to teach or develop. And this misconception stems from the idea that these skills are personal traits. They're not personal traits, they're abilities that you can develop over time and learn if you have the right format, training program, and educators.
What was a major setback you faced in your life? And then how did you overcome it? And what can others learn from the experience you went through?
Well, this is great because it really speaks to why I'm so passionate about this topic. I used to believe that if I just worked harder, spent more time studying, and crammed more information into my brain, I would succeed. Like most students, when I was in school younger, I relied heavily on outdated learning methods, such as rote memorization or rereading textbooks, highlighting sections, or even rewriting my notes. I was convinced that by the sheer amount of time I dedicated, I would eventually get the information to stick. Unfortunately, it didn't. What really crushed me was when I saw friends and classmates doing better with less effort. I started to question myself, was I smart enough? Maybe not. Was something wrong with me that I couldn't retain the information no matter how many hours I spent studying? The more I pushed, the more frustrated I became. I looked for answers elsewhere and never getting the answers that really were helping me out. And it wasn't really for a lack of effort. I was grinding every day for hours, especially when I got into college and grad school. But eventually that frustration turned into depression because the gap became more and more clear as I went further in my education. When I got into college, grad school, no matter how hard I worked, the information just wasn't sticking long enough to help me perform at a level I needed. I was putting in more and more hours. Most of my peers were putting in less hours, so I struggled to keep up. Eventually, it became too much. I had to drop out of an academic program because I just couldn't make the grades. That failure really hit me hard, and I carried the weight of it for years. And I was convinced I was just a slow learner and I couldn't cut it. Later, as an adult, I learned something that would change everything about learning to me. It wasn't by how much time I spent studying, it was about how effectively I was learning and what learning methods I was using. One of my biggest mistakes in school was assuming that the more time I spent studying, the better I got. But quantity doesn't equal quality. Take driving, for example. Most of us drive almost every day, but we don't necessarily get better at it over time. We just repeat the same habits. Learning works the same way. If you're not practicing with intensity and focus, you're not improving. I spent hours in low intensity study sessions thinking that the more time I spent, the more progress I would make. In reality, it would have been better off doing shorter, more focused sessions using proven learning strategies. And here's really kind of the thing that learning should be designed to mirror how you're going to use the information later. If you're learning to solve problems, you need to practice solving the problems, not just memorizing the facts. And if someone like me can do it, if someone like me can change my outlook and my approach and my effectiveness, someone with average intelligence and average drive, so can you. I don't want anyone to experience that mental anguish that I did. We can all learn better and faster if we use the right strategies. It's not about working harder necessarily, it's about working smarter, understanding how your brain learns best and applying the right techniques. Today, I'm passionate about sharing these lessons so that others can avoid that same level of frustration and mental anguish that I did and unlock their potential to learn in ways that truly stick.
And then at this point, you've recorded over 150 podcast episodes. What have you learned from the process of creating your podcast and over time?
Yeah, recording over 150 episodes of the podcast now has provided me with invaluable insights into leadership, both in terms of content and process. First, consistency of leadership principles across industries. One of the more significant takeaways for me from interviewing so many leaders across so many different fields is that the core leadership principles are universal. While industries and roles may differ, great leaders consistently demonstrate these traits, integrity, transparency, effective communication, empathy. They're consistent across all industries and they reinforce the reason why fundamentals are so important. Also, leadership is an ongoing journey, not a destination. The great leaders that I talk to, they recognize and they reinforce the learning process. They're always learning, continually refining their leadership approach. This sense of humility and openness to growth is a common trait among the most respected leaders. One of the most underutilized leadership tools that I think hopefully is becoming more prominent today is storytelling. The best leaders, regardless of the industry, regardless of the area that they specialize in, they are great storytellers. It's a way to inspire, motivate, and communicate your vision. Stories are remembered better. Look at all the great movies that are out. Hollywood has built the entire industry on being able to tell a great story. Several leaders have highlighted the power of vulnerability, being open to their own struggles, mistakes, and learning processes. Leaders who show vulnerability help to build trust with their teams and foster a culture where others feel it's safe to express their challenges and seek feedback. A great leader is one that not only has the answers, but also shows the difficulties that they're experiencing and invites people into that approach and journey with them. I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. If it has, I ask you to share it with someone who would also benefit from it. If you've been enjoying and gaining knowledge from this podcast, then subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find all the previous episodes of the podcast and additional learning resources. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify and leave up to a 5-star review.